Good afternoon to everybody. My name is Maria, and I'm the secretariat, part of the secretariat of the TWG on disaster-related statistics, and I'll be stepping up for our chair for today, who's not yet in the meeting, Miss Vasiti Soko. So she will just take over once she comes in the meeting. So, first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody. And for a start, I would just like to give an overview of the last meeting's decision and next steps. So, on the decision made last time, the members were informed on the preliminary findings from the country survey on the state of production, dissemination, and use of disaster-related statistics to be used for a regional situation analysis. However, not all countries responded. So this was presented last time by Puji Pugiono, our ESCAP consultant. So to strengthen the findings and address other information gaps, it was decided that the Secretariat will solicit information through the recirculation of the questionnaire and structured phone interviews for additional selected countries. On the next step, the Statistical Institute for Asia and the Pacific will provide a summary and reflections on the feedback received on the draft e-learning course on disaster-related statistics. So Sokol-Vac of SIAP presented the process and the information on how the members of the TWG will review and provide feedback on the modules of the e-learning in the previous meeting. So based on the decision and the next step I just mentioned, brings us to the next agenda, which is the Secretariat's briefing. This session is in response to the decisions and the next step discussed in the previous meeting. So to begin, I would like to call on our first presenter, our ESCAP consultant, Puji Pugiono, to give us an update on the regional analysis report findings, to include an outline of the country case study on the implementation of the DRSF. So over to you, Puji. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Maria. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by greeting you with a new year. Although this has been a very difficult year, we hope that you stay safe, happy, and prosperous. That being said, I would like to take my 10 minutes to give you a quick update with the regional situational analysis. This will be an outline, a proposed outline for country studies that we will include in that regional situational analysis. And hopefully that will constitute some contribution for our technical working group to shape, to decide what kind of work plan we will have for the years to come. Next one, please. Now, in the last meeting, I presented to you some sort of line of thinking, trying to see what the ideal disaster-related statistics looks like in terms of the enabling environment, the data compilation, the sharing, and data utilization. We presented this and discussed it in the last meeting. Next. And out of the 11 countries participated in the questionnaire, this is what it looks like based on those criteria that we set up front. In terms of the different variables, different aspects of disaster-related statistics in questions. And I'm very pleased to report to you that 2 more countries have submitted their response to the questionnaire, which is Cambodia and India. And we hope to receive some more from other countries who would like to participate, and we can have further discussion on this. But the point of discussion today, next, is, as it was said by Maria, in terms of trying to better understand the situation in the countries. So we conducted a structured interview, and I would like to express my thanks to colleagues who have generously spent their time with me for around 45 minutes to an hour. Some of you brought in your colleague from NSO and NDMA so that we have a triangular conversation. But essentially what we are trying to do, and that's our proposed outline for the country studies in the regional analysis, is to start with the country management, disaster management profile in terms of the profile, the risk characteristics and the government response to those hazards and risks. The second one is trying to capture the enabling environment. That is the regulatory frameworks, the programs that's going on in the country. The third one is the data compilation and processing. So we ask if there are guidelines or protocols in place in the country, if you have standards and classification. The fourth one, with regard to sharing and cooperation, we inquire whether you have there is a coordination arrangement and what mechanism there are for data sharing and exchange. And the fifth one is the data utilization. How the disaster data are linked to development planning, and also monitoring and reporting of Sendai framework and SDGs. And finally, we would like to close up in the write-up later with some sort of perspective, what is the prospect for the country if they would like to embark on taking DRSF, as a scheme for their country. Next. So far we have, for the purpose of better understanding of the situation in Asia Pacific, we pick up 6 countries, largely on the basis of the regional, just try to illustrate the sub-regional flavor, if you like, and try to get a brief highlight on the situation of disaster-related data collection, compilation, sharing, and utilization in the current context of each of the countries, and explore the scope for DRSF. Now, this is a very, very quick highlight because we have only 10 minutes, and I hope you will enjoy reading the fuller version at a later date. First, in Bangladesh, representing part of South Asia. From the conversation with Rafiq, we have understanding that Bangladesh has very robust disaster management system, largely because Bangladesh is disaster resilient as it is for many, many 10 of years. And they have many programs in place. They have integrated intelligence mechanisms of the Bureau of Statistics and other agencies. They have regularized data collection, and they have annual survey. Well, it's not annual. I mean, actually a disaster household survey. This will be the second one. Sorry, it's not annual. And the country is on the way to implement DRSF. They have incorporated DRSF in many other considerations. Second country is Bhutan. We thank our colleague in Bhutan who invited NSO and Disaster Management Office to speak together. And we have a better appreciation of the improving disaster management system in the country. The data are still independent. It means every sectors are holding their own data, although there is a platform which is the center, GIS center in the country, and have policy for that. But largely they are operating separately. Bhutan has many development partners projects from WFP, World Bank, and other partners who try to help out. But part of the issue that they're facing is that there are limited capacities in the country. And the fact that even the statistical system is facing the gaps in policy and regulation, it has a direct impact on the prospect of DRSF. Next is Fiji from the Pacific. I think the disaster management system in Fiji is progressing over the years. It's making a lot of progress there. The disaster management, NDMOs, and the Statistical Bureau have been working together in post-disaster need assessment in the major disasters. So they have a closer relationship. They have conducted joint analysis on Sendai framework, on SDGs. And there is a renewed interest on DRSF in Fiji. And in fact, disaster will be included as one chapter in the new publication of the Bureau of Statistics. So this is indication of they're getting closer. Georgia in Central Asia, I observed they have a comprehensive policies. There are a lot of policies in place. But similar to Bhutan, they have a very strong tradition of sectoral data because each of the agency was the remnant of the Soviet era. They're very strong on their technical capacities, but I think they're missing the platform to integrate their data. There are projects that build the national disaster information management systems that are ongoing, need to be updated, but it's there. And a big hope in Georgia, because in the course of their integrating with the European Union, many of the standards in Europe are being absorbed into Georgia, and we hope to see more improvement there. Indonesia from Southeast Asia, very quick highlight on that. The disaster management system, I believe it's quite advanced in Indonesia. They have adopted an integrated regulatory framework on the data, on the disaster system, and they have established and operationalized platforms like INARISK, disaster registry, and what's not. And they have integrated the disaster data to large extent in development planning, in Sendai framework monitoring and SDGs. And the DRSF has been adopted as one of the country's priority in terms of statistics. And they have decided to undertake DRSF in several pilot applications. Finally, Sri Lanka in Southeast Asia, they have very established disaster management system. After the tsunami, there are a lot of momentum gained in Sri Lanka. Disaster management and statistics, I'm making cross references. In fact, Ranjit is a statistical officer who is being seconded to disaster management office, and thus creating that pipeline that opened the two parties. In fact, they have a lot of supporting programs and initiatives, Sahana, and then centralized data portal, and so on. And they're quite eager to develop the DRSF. Those are very quick highlight of the 6 countries that we have interviewed for the last 3 weeks. Next one. Very quick observation in general. I think number one is that all of the countries acknowledge that disaster-related statistics become more important because of pragmatic demand, but also because of the Sendai framework and SDGs require quantification in the reporting and monitoring. Number two, the practices of disaster data and statistics in these 6 countries are quite diverse, in fact. Many of them are response-oriented still, emergency data rather than risk data. Data are typically dispersed in sectoral agencies, and there are still gaps in the definition, classification, and standards. Fourth, and inevitably, I think, issues with the DRSF are linked very quickly with the bigger issues with the statistical system in the countries. Some disaster data are already incorporated in statistics, but there are similar issues with other sectors, with agriculture, with mining, and what's not. And the difficulty to separate the administrative data from statistics. The fourth one, I think the DRSF have been discussed here at the regional level, but at the country level, DRSF is not really known. That's my impressions. And integrating disaster data and statistics are not always as priority as such. And in most of the country, there's no clear decision whether they will embark on DRSF or not. Now, the implication on number 5 is that a country seems to require and then have need to see the model to benchmark. Yeah, DRSF as a concept has been here, it's emerging, and as nascent, we talk about it. But countries seems to look for model. They would like to have templates and flow of the process, and also example of a country who have adopted the DRSF as a benchmark. And finally, the implication on technical working group. I believe that from our interview, it became more apparent that our technical working group become a regional platform to advocate for DRSF, for you to bring home and talk to your officials, your ministers on the importance of DRSF. Number 2, this is also a platform to build the capacities, as it was expressed by countries that they need capacities to do it. And finally, the TWG could be an avenue to share experiences. Many of challenges are similar, solutions are different, and there are many innovations along the way. Maria, that's a very quick highlight on the proposed outline of the country studies, and I'm open for comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Puji, for your presentations. So, but before we go to the next presentation, I would just like to welcome Mr. Sunya Ratulevo from Fiji, in place of Ms. Basiti Soko from Fiji, who's supposed to be our chair for this meeting, but she was called for an emergency meeting in their office. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Sunya Ratulevo, and he will chair the meeting from this on. So Mr. Sunya, I give you the floor.
Good afternoon from Fiji. So the next session is to discuss on the disaster management practices and data collection mechanism. So we have two speakers. The first one is we would like to introduce Dr. Sanjay Kumar. He's the Director, Social Statistics Division, the National Statistics Office in India, and the first speaker will be Ranjiv Wirasakera, the Statistical Officer, the Statistical Unit, Disaster Management Division in Sri Lanka. So we will give our speakers 15 minutes to deliver, then we will have some answer we have our questions, then we will use the next 30 minutes to raise questions with the presenters. I would like to now welcome Ranjit Wirasakera, the Statistical Officer from Sri Lanka, to deliver this presentation.
Excuse me, Mr. Sunya. We have another presentation after Fuji, which is from Sokol. So I would just like to, the presentations of Sri Lanka and India would be still in the next session. So if you allow me, Mr. Sunya, I would like to call Mr. Sokol Vako from SIAP to give us an update on the feedback received on the draft e-learning course that we have sent out for review for our members. So everybody, let's all welcome Sokol for his updates on the e-learning. Over to you, Sokol.
Very good. Thank you very much, Maria, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the floor. I'll be very brief, so we will have a chance to go to some of the country examples, which I'm sure colleagues are very keen to hear about. I have just one slide as usual, and I would like to just briefly give you an update of where we are and where we're going again, as we have done over the past few meetings. Let me first, on my own behalf, as well as Maria and other colleagues at the Statistics Division, express my thanks to all of you who contributed to the review of the course. Thank you very much for all your inputs. They're very valuable to us and provide us with a good path forward on finalizing it for the time being. I'm pleased to note that there are no major substantive issues that have come up during the review, so we are very happy about that. There are some suggestions on making the course a little bit more user-friendly and whatnot, and to the greatest extent we can, we will obviously take those on board and try to have a final product ready soon. So where do we go from here? It's that our team here in SIAP as well as ESCAP will update the course, again, to the extent possible for the time being, based on the inputs that we have received. And then our expectation is that we will have a first facilitated learning of the course starting sometime, hopefully late February is our hope. So we hope to send invitation letters out to national statistical offices, which are our counterpart, and then obviously to members of the working group as well to join the facilitated learning. So thank you again very much from our end on reviewing the course, and I think we are in very good shape, especially now that we have had a chance to get your views on it, to finalize it and launch the course and have it available for colleagues to take it. Thank you so very much, and again, if you have any questions, happy to take those on board. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Maria. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sokol, for your very brief but substantive presentation. I now give the floor again to Mr. Sunya. Mr. Sunya, we will have now the floor for some 15-minute discussions regarding comments and reactions to Puji's and Sokol's presentation. So I give you the floor now, Mr. Sunya.
So can we give the members now to respond to the presentation that was done by Mr. Sokol? Yeah. So can we give the floor now to members if they want to comment the presentation done by Mr. Sokol? Do we have any comments from the members?
Okay, I think we give 1 more minute for the members to think, or if there's anything on their mind with regards to the previous 2 presentations. So we're not seeing any hands, so I guess that the 2 presentations are very clear to all of you. Okay, Mr. Sunya, I think we need to go to the next session if there is no other clarifications or comments from the members.
Thank you, Chair. We'll move on now to the next session of the discussion today. So the next session, we will be discussing on the disaster management collection methods. First, the Statistical Officer, the Ministry of Internal Security, Internal Affairs and Disaster Management in Sri Lanka. And then we will have Dr. Sanjay Kumar, the Director of Statistics. We will time.
Yeah, Mr. Sunya, I think we're having problems with your mic. We cannot hear you very clearly. Maybe you can come closer to the microphone.
So, can we have a Ranjit Weerasakera from Sri Lanka to deliver his presentation?
Okay, we're now calling on Mr. Ranjit.
Rajit, you can unmute your microphone.
Ranjit, are you there?
I think Rajit's still struggling with the sound.
Okay. I think we should move on with, okay. I think we should move on with Mr. Sanjay Kumar of India instead while waiting for Ranjit to
Yes.
settle connectivity
Yeah.
problems, I think, from his end. So maybe we can call Mr. Sanjay. Over the floor to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm going to present the disaster management and disaster related statistics in India. There is a very short presentation from my side. I will request if you can please. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So next slide, please. So here I have tried to give the brief on the disaster management in India. So as we know, the Indian subcontinent, the entire subcontinent is very vulnerable to a lot of natural calamities. It is due to its geographical location. We are having Himalayan range in the northern side and northeastern side, and the desert on the west, and having seas on the three sides of the country. So it is a very much prone to almost all kind of calamities, not only India but also the neighboring countries of the India. Still, we are committed to build a safe and disaster resilient India by making a holistic, proactive, multi-disaster and technology-driven cities through a culture of prevention, mitigation, preparedness, and efficient response. So in India, we have an umbrella act. We call it Disaster Management Act 2005 for dealing with all kind of disaster management. So the background of the act is that we had a major earthquake in the year 2001 in the state of Gujarat, in which around more than 13,000 of people were killed and lakhs of people were injured, and around 3 lakhs buildings were destroyed. So that time, that it was felt that we should have some specific acts, specific agencies to deal with this disaster. So the act was passed in 2005, and under this act we have constituted a National Disaster Management Authority, NDMA, which is headed by the Prime Minister of India. So it is an apex body to lay down the policies for disaster management on all kind of disaster, how to collect the statistics on disaster, what is the role of the state, what is the role of the center, what is the role of NSO. Each and everything has been described in the act. After that, Prime Minister of India, he has given 10 points agenda for disaster risk reduction. So keeping the severity of disaster in India, so the intervention is being made from the topmost level. So these 10 points are basically for better disaster risk management. We are basically encouraging the society approach. We are involving state government, central government, the academia, the civil service organizations, private sectors, all. So all these has been mentioned under these 10 points. Then within this Disaster Management Act, we constituted one disaster response, National Disaster Response Force, NDRF, which is a specialized force. It was set up in 2006, and it is to basically to make India safer and disaster resilience. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are, Sanjay.
Yeah. So this force is a specialized force, and it is deployed in the disaster-like situation or where the disaster has been occurred. So we are having enough manpower under this force. Then we have taken a lot of initiatives during the last 2 years, like the disaster management has been mainstreamed in India. All the new, yeah, if who is not speaking, if they can put on mute. So, we have mainstream disaster in like if all in India, all the new projects, these are mandatorily to be disaster management resilience. All the ongoing projects, they have been revisited, and the disaster resilience component has been added in these projects. At present, the infrastructure loan are given only after due diligence on the disaster management resilience audit. Apart from this, a lot of awareness publicity has been created in India on the issue of disaster, so that the local that all the people, the society, they can be involved. The disaster related thing has also been included in the course curriculum of the school colleges, and a lot of mock drills used to be have in the school and colleges, so that the student, even at the very beginning level, they became aware of the disaster, what to do during the disaster. Everything is being included in the course curriculum. Then we have increased our focus on the disaster related statistics. Earlier, there was not a very, I can say, very synchronized system to have disaster related data, but now we are having fully MIS system for capturing the disaster data from the states, from the districts. And we all know that what is the importance of disaster statistics. So in order to make the data-driven policies or the evidence-based policies for having a successful disaster management, the importance of data cannot be undermined. So for prioritizing an effective allocation of resources, we need to have authenticated data on the disaster. Next slide, please. So how we are compiling the disaster registers in India? Actually, a lot of agencies are involved in the disaster-related statistics, like the Indian Meteorological Department, our Central Water Commission, National Crime Record Bureau, Geographical Survey of India, National Remote Sensing Agencies, and Ministry of Home Affairs and NSOs. All are involved in collecting some or more disaster-related statistics. But to synchronize all efforts, the Ministry of Home Affairs, which is the nodal ministry for the disaster-related matters, with the help of taking inputs from NSOs, they have developed the NDMIS. This is National Disaster Management Information System. So this NDMIS, the information regarding the disaster, the impact of disaster on human, the loss, the economic loss due to disaster, the loss to the critical infrastructure due to this disaster, all kind of information, including the information related to the fund disbursement, is being captured in this NDMIS. So basically, the main driver behind this was that the importance of timely and comprehensive data on the disaster from the local level is required. So to have this in mind, this NDMIS has been set up in our country. Apart from this, we have certain data requirement under the Sendai monitoring framework and the sustainable development goals. So to have data on these two aspects, the NDMIS data is helping us out. And next slide, please. So as far as the Sendai monitoring framework and SDGs are concerned, we are releasing our data. First, I will talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. The NSO India has been mandated to develop some monitoring framework for monitoring the implementation of SDGs in India. So the NSO India, or the Social Statistics Division in India, we have developed a national indicator framework. It is basically to help to facilitate the monitoring of SDGs in India. So this NIF has been developed in the sync of the global indicator framework, and we used to revise from time to time. At present, we are having around 300 indicators. To be specific, we are having 302 indicators, and the regular reports are being released of this SDG progress in India. If you see our SDG reports, we are having a few indicators related disaster under like goal 1 of poverty, goal 11 that sustainable cities and human settlement, and goal 13 climate action. So the indicators from the global indicator framework has been customized, adapted in the Indian context, and they have been made a part of the monitoring system of SDGs, and we are regularly releasing data on this SDG. Then regarding the Sendai framework, India is reporting on Sendai specific target A, B, and E, and we are making efforts to report on the other targets as well. Here you can see I have just pasted here 3 graphs. If you see SDG 151, which is similar to 1151 and 1311, it speaks basically about number of deaths, missing persons, and directly affected persons attributed to disaster per 1 lakh population. So due to the because we are now having all the institutions which are working on the better disaster management. So over the year, the deaths due to this disaster has been substantially reduced. So I am having the data for the last 4 years. One can see about progress on the indicator 1.5.1. Similarly, if you see SDG 154, which is the repeat indicator of 11B2 and 1313, it is basically proportion of local government that adopts and implement local disaster risk reduction strategies in line with the national disaster risk reduction strategies. At present, in India, almost all the states, they are having the strategies for the reduction of disaster. And here we have taken the number of districts. We are having around 700 districts across the country, and most of the districts, they are having some strategies for reducing the disaster risk. So almost all the districts are having this type of strategy in place. Few districts are remaining, and we are working to develop the same strategies in the line of the national strategies in these districts. Similarly, this is regarding SDG 1.53, which is repeat indicator of 11 and 1312. That speaks about the implementation of the disaster risk reduction in the line of Sendai framework. So we have fully complying with this Sendai monitoring framework. And you see in 2015 we started, and at the 2019 we are now fully compliant with this Sendai monitoring framework. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. No, sorry. I'm sorry. So now, what are the challenges we are having at present in India? So again, we are striving to have this strengthening disaster database and monitoring system. I told you that earlier we do not have a very robust system. There are several agencies which are collecting data on the disaster related matters. Now, after having the NDMIS, the National Disaster Management Information System, in place, it has become easier for us to collect data from the local level. However, the system is now it is fully functional, but some data from some part is still yet to come. So we are doing our best to capture data from the local level. Then one of the major challenges is to collect data on the economic loss due to disaster. This is regarding, that's why we do not have the indicator SDG 152, which to speak about the economic loss due to disaster. So we have started to work on this. Earlier we find it a little bit difficult to have that conceptually we were that time struggling with economic loss due to disaster. Now we are working on this. Very soon we will be able to collect data from entire country on the economic loss due to disaster. Then the goal of zero mortality with substantial reduction in economic loss in developed infrastructure. This is really a challenge to have to maintain to attain the goal of zero mortalities, as well as to reduce the economic loss due to disaster. Now, one of the major challenges to improve the quality of infrastructure through better disaster resilience regulations. So again, however, this is out of the purview of NSOs, but still the Ministry of Home Affairs, they have developed a kind of guideline for having new infrastructure so that these can be made risk resilient, disaster risk resilient. So this is a challenge, really challenge to improve the quality of these infrastructure. Then one of the challenges to have skill development and public awareness. So after having the act in place, we have also established the system of giving regular training to the people who are involved in the data collection of disaster. So a regular training program now are being conducted by the NDMA, and a lot of public awareness has been created to cope up with the disaster. So these are the major challenges and work which we are doing. And if I have time, then I will request Puji if I can give example, one case study of the cyclone Wani that hit India just 2-3 years back. If you can go to next slide. Puji, I have time now, up to 3 minutes.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I guess you can present it.
If you can come to the last slide. So yeah. So in the year 2019, in the May 2019, one cyclone Fani that created havoc on the eastern part of India, especially the state of Odisha. There was a lot of problem due to this Fani. So the maximum speed of that Fani was around 175 to 180 km per hour. That after hitting India, that entered into Bangladesh. During this Fani program, we had a largest ever evacuation program in the world, which was carried out. Around 1.5 million people were evacuated within 24 hours. More than 25,000 tourists who were stuck there, they were evacuated. During this Fani, all the fishing activities we already suspend 2 days prior to the landfall. I want to tell that it was an example of successful disaster management. We are having early warning system there. So Indian Meteorological Department that has built an effective service to predict accurate timing of cyclone formation. The information was communicated to the local. There was a very clear communicating system. That time, roughly around 2.6 million text messages were transmitted to the probable affected area. The government had regular press briefing and media program during that time. The do's and don'ts were very clearly communicated to the locals. And after that, even the people also they followed the government instruction once the warning was issued. So with the help of the volunteers, the local communication groups, the youth groups, and CSOs, the Rapid Action Force, the government was able to evacuate such a large number of people in very advance. And after the disaster that happened, we in the advance we ensured the food security in the aftermath of the cyclone. The sufficient food grains were pre-positioned in all the fair price of under the public distribution system. So that early warning system and a and a very good management system, the disaster management system, that was able to save the lives of thousands of people. So that was an example of honey from Indian side. So thank you. I think I have explained everything, and thanks a lot.
So thank you very much, Dr. Sanjay Kumar, for a very clear and comprehensive presentation on the disaster management practices and data collection mechanism in India. So I hope now Mr. Ranjit Weerasekaara from Sri Lanka is available to deliver his presentation before we have a round of questions with members. So can we invite Mr. Ranjit Weerasekaara for his presentation, please?
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Are you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
You can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Please, my slide.
If you're using two devices, you can turn off the other one, I think. Okay, you can try.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon.
That's better. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Sri Aurobindo. Hello. I can pay no. Hello. Hello.
Yes, Rajit. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Good evening. I am immensely thankful to members of the ESCAP to giving this opportunity to share our disaster management practices and data collection mechanism of the Sri Lanka. Please, next slide. The brief introduction of the Sri Lanka. Actually, the Sri Lanka is face more natural hazards exacerbated by the climate change. Location in the Indian Ocean and the high pressure area of the Bay of Bengal. We expected high winds and unexpected heavy rains due to 2 monsoonal rains and the 2 intermonsoonal rains. Some parts experienced the long period of dry seasons. So that we consequences potential to disrupt to our development and the achievements. The frequent flooding in the lower parts of the country may affect a lot of death and affected populations and effects of high wind and cyclones due to cyclones mainly affected to the north and the east parts of the country, and landslide affected to 10 districts and mainly central part of the country, and severe droughts caused to northwestern, northern and north central and the southern provinces of the country. And right side you can see the past hazard statistics by last 14 years. All indicators demonstrate increase in trends and deaths, people affected and cost of development, so that we have to face a lot of difficulties to disaster management side. Please, next slide. Actually, the enabling the disaster management after the tsunami, the government of Sri Lanka started make the governing body to disaster management. Under that strategies act was passed year 2005, and under that act formed the National Council for Disaster Management, headed by His Excellency the President. Prime Minister and 10 other key ministries, deputy minister, chief ministers of the provincial councils, and also under that act established a separate ministry for disaster management in 2006. Under that ministry, the two main technical body was established. One is the Disaster Management Center, other one is the National Disaster Relief Service Center for giving relief for the victims. And already established under different gazette, National Building Research Organization and Department of Meteorology. That organization also attached to the Ministry of Disaster Management to get the better benefit for the DM sector. Another one is the policy instrument for the youth disaster management ministry. We have already Disaster Management Act, Act number 13 in year 2005, and already we have a National Disaster Management Policy and National Disaster Management Plan, and also the National Emergency Operation Plan and local level disaster management plan, and resilience framework, and force disaster need assessment and the recovery plan. After every disaster, we summon this National Disaster Management Council and give the authority to prepare the disaster management post-disaster need assessment to recover that disaster. In addition to that, Ministry of Disaster Management collects the data for Sendai in line with Sendai framework and sustainable development goals, reporting for the sustainable development goals. Under that system, we already held 2 meetings with 72 stakeholders. That 72 stakeholders divided into 15 thematic sectors: road sector, agriculture, education, health, likewise, and sectors, and they give the instruction and training to how to collect the data according to the SFDRR data formats, and plans to form a data cell in the some stakeholder institution do not have the proper mechanism to collect data, and we discuss with them and plan to make a cells in that institutions, and technical knowledge and technical training given by the DCS to them, and at that mechanism we are trying to get information for to help for the disaster management. And the response government has initiated the resilience among national priorities and make strategies to strengthen disaster reduction programs, projects and activities, and collects of disaster related data, statistics and the information for these activities. Next slide. Next slide, you can show the data collection flow. Supported by the United UNDP in Sri Lanka, we make a disaster information management systems under the United Nations. We have already prepared the metadata portal and also the disaster risk information system and disincentra data management system. The main stakeholders of this data system, this information system, the stakeholders of sub and district level for this system: the district secretariat, divisional secretariat, provincial council and local authorities, police stations, MOH office contributed to data for this information system, and stakeholder holders at national level: Disaster Relief Service Center, Department of Meteorology, Department of Wildlife and Conservation, Epidemiology units of the Ministry of Health, Department of Social Services, Department of Fire Services and the Colombo Municipal Council, National Library and Document Center, likewise, and also the main stakeholder of the Department of Census and Statistics and Department of Agriculture. Census and Statistics Department already produce population data, demography data, agriculture data, likewise, and they use that type of data already for disaster management. And the hazard related data sources, the flood sector data can obtain from the Department of Irrigation, National Building Research Organization from got the landslide data, and drought information got from the Department of Agriculture and the Meteorological Department. Actually, the Meteorological Department is the main body for declaring drought, tsunami warnings, lightning warnings, and so on. And addition to that, the Coastal Conservation Department, we can get the sea level rise, storm surge, coastal erosions. Next slide, please. The strength of the DCS to collect disaster-related statistics. The main is availability of separate technical divisions. We have 16 separate technical divisions. As an example, population and demography, national accounts, agriculture, cartography, ICT division, etc. And we every districts and DS division we may have officers and data units for collecting disasters, and they are process the other related institutional data in that unit. The availability of officers in the all time of all line ministries is a strength for us. All the main departments and institutions as a focal point to collect and process data. The technical expertise in the office of DCS is main benefit for the DCS to collect disaster-related data, and the authorized main governmental independent data independent data collection body is DCS. That is also the main strength to collect data for the DCS. Challenges in the data integration, the use of different classifications, mandates and functions. The DCS has used international codes and national account system and local standard codes, but other institutions do not use that type of definitions and mandates for data collection. That's the one of difficult to integrating that type of that data. The most of agencies do not collect data up to lowest administrative level. The Sri Lanka has 14,021 GN divisions, but DCS has collect all the GN division data. So that's the problem to integrate data with other institutions. The most of agencies collected, stored and shared by the different formats, Excels, reports and maps. That data cannot link with DCS shape files and Excels. That's the one of the problem. The lack of processing expertise and required skills are main problem to other institutions data integrated with the DCS data. Problem in the integration of DCS data and shape files with other agencies due to segregation and demarcation issues. And also the duplication of data and no common definitions for connected subject areas. The no system or policy for real-time data data sharing mechanism. And in my conclusion, the DCS, Department of Census and Statistics, forming a new unit together with Sendai Secretariat of Ministry of Disaster Management to produce integrated disasters-related data and statistics. The second one is the need. We need the capacity building for officers who are engaged in disaster management field of the Ministry of Disaster Management Division and Department of Census and Statistics. And the we also request the experience sharing with the countries that have the proper disaster-related statistics system. It is very important to us to get knowledge from them to improve our system. And next one is the request to consultancy assistance from ESCAP to improve the systems. And propose an annually reviewed and evaluation. We don't have the annual review system for disaster-related statistics, and we propose the annual review and evaluation system for the disaster-related data collection systems. Next one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ranjit Weerasethera, for your presentation. So, ladies and gentlemen, we must thank two presenters, and we'll give the floor now for any point of clarification or any comments for the two presenters. Just to begin the discussion this afternoon, for Fiji, we are currently under a state of declaration of disaster for a tropical cyclone Asa that impacted us on 17th to 19th December last year, towards the end of last year. So today we are now responding to a new developing tropical cyclone to the north of the country. So we are thankful to the two presenters for what we have learned today. It's something for not only for Fiji, but also for the other countries in the region to learn from. So we will give the floor now for any comments or questions to our two presenters. So any comments, any questions from the floor?
I think Vivian is raising the hand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, please. Yes, this is Vivian Ilarina from the Philippines. Yes, first, I would like to congratulate the two country presentations. They are excellent and they are clear to all of us, I think, I hope. So I have just a few comments. Number one, from the presentations, we saw that the DRSF, they are clear in terms of their linkages to the SDGs and also to the Sendai framework. This is to serve a framework to develop the statistics to monitor the identified indicators under the SDGs and the Sendai framework. I'm not yet too sure whether we can also include other concerns, broader concerns like climate change, migration, poverty, and among others, whether how to link also this framework on disaster statistics with these concerns, if Definitely they can be linked, but how do we go about that? Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I think we see Rike is raising her hand. Maybe just go ahead, Rike.
Yes,
Yes.
okay. Well, yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I'm just wishing everyone a very happy new year. It's the first time this technical working group meets in the new year. And it's been great to hear the excellent presentations from India and Sri Lanka. I have a question to Dr. Kumar. I wonder, given the aim that you mentioned was to actually take deaths or mortality from disaster to a zero, how does India treat health hazards when it comes to disaster statistics? And of course, the reason I'm asking is whether you do plan to include deaths from COVID-19 in disaster impact statistics for India in 2020 and 2021. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Regarding health hazards, if you talk about the COVID-19 situation, our Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, they are doing a wonderful job. We are having the largest COVID-19 cases in the region, just a second after in the world, second after USA. So, and just we have started the last week the world largest vaccination program, and it is very happy to note that we have started to vaccinate the people. As far as the inclusion of COVID-19 disaster in the impact statistics for 20 or 21, I will have to check with the NDMA people whether really they have taken any decision to include this on their reports or in their monitoring framework. But right now we are having a parallel system of data collection, especially on this COVID-19, the continuous data from having the latest technology, using the latest information technology. All the data is coming to us. We are having a very good database. And the Ministry of Health, they are mandated with to take any kind of decision and action in case of health hazard. And if we talk about the SDGs, a lot of indicators on the health hazards are already in our reports, and we are regularly releasing these statistics as a part of SDG monitoring. But the question I will have to check with the NDMA whether the disaster impact statistics due to this COVID-19 will be included for 20 or 21. Then I will get back to you once I got the information. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may just add comment to that, just sharing the perspective from Indonesia, Dr. Kumar, the NDMA in Indonesia, instead of adding the number, because then adding the number becomes skewed, yeah. So what the government did was to create another category. So you have the natural disaster, there's a social conflict and so on, and now they come with a different category, which is non-natural disaster, whatever that means. But essentially, it's creating a box that will do separate accounting as to not to skew the equation of the otherwise the mainstream disaster statistics. That's from Indonesia. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for the comment. Do we have any further comments, any questions from the floor?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may, I would like to react to Vivian's comments and questions.
Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. Vivian, thanks for the very pertinent questions. How do we get a good system of statistics related to disasters that do go beyond the very specific indicators that are in the Sendai framework and the SDGs? Because as anyone who's been looking at these indicators know, those indicators are very specific and focused mainly on disaster impacts. But once we start talking about disaster risk reductions, vulnerabilities, etc., it makes a lot of sense to start looking at a picture that certainly involves climate change, poverty, just the things you mentioned, Vivian. And I just want to go back to the beginning of the development of the DRSF with the purpose of this statistical framework was to support national disaster risk reduction. So the tables and the underlying analysis in the framework has a much larger scope than the indicators for our global reporting mechanisms. The way I see it is data collection and processing for disaster-related statistics should first and foremost serve national purposes. And the framework is designed, the DRSF is designed for that. We then, in the context of our discussions and development of this framework, got very strong demand for everyone to highlight and illustrate the tables that would generate the indicators necessary for Sendai reporting, SDG reporting, etc. But the basic scope is much wider. Having said that, there's still a lot of work we can do to make the linkages to these other development aspects much clearer. And I think, again, it's probably in the recommended tables that we attach to the statistical framework where that could be done. I take this opportunity to just inform the whole technical working group that in the context of this global work to further develop the DRSF into a global standard, we will, together with the Economic Commission for Europe, be organizing an expert forum on disaster-related statistics in April this year. And one of the topics on the agenda, I'm almost 100%, we haven't finished the agenda yet, will be the linkages between the disaster agenda and the climate change agenda. So at least one of these topics will have a good opportunity to get into depth. And your comments, Vivian, I think are comments we should keep in mind as we start working globally on further refining and finalizing a global standard for this area of statistics. Yeah, but thank you very much, Vivian. As always, your reflections make me reflect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Reiki. And this is well said. And yes, it's well understood that we have more work to do. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Puji again.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Again, just adding into reflection that Rike is doing. In early 2014, when we started this discussion, Vivian, what happened was actually what was on the table was FDES. the framework for the development of environmental statistics, right? If I'm not mistaken, the fourth component was on disasters, right? So it could have been just a part of FDES, but the demand for disaster statistics was such, there's a huge demand for quantification and analysis, so that finally we all feel we need to come up with a separate framework, although not dissociated from it. In fact, it's reinforcing. So I guess the circle become a full circle now, Ricky. If the next conversation, we actually pull it back into the climate change in the next round. So I guess we're on the same trajectory of movement. It's not separated. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, sir. Do we have any further questions or comments from the floor? So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So there are no more responses from the floor. So again, we wish to thank our two presenters, Mr. Ranjit Weerasekera from Sri Lanka and Dr. Sanjay Kumar from India. Thank you very much, sir. So we will hand over now to our chair to take over the meeting. Thank you.
Maria.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think we should go over back to you, Mr. Sunya. If there are no more questions from the floor, we will go to the closing session of this meeting.
I have a question though, Maria.
Okay.
If I noted correctly, Ranjit from Sri Lanka was listing several requests there. Right, Ranjit? You're asking for experience sharing from other countries. You're requesting for technical assistance and also yearly, review of disaster-related statistics, for example. So I don't suggest that we have to tackle all now, but perhaps the technical working group would like to take note of that and maybe tackle it in the next meeting or something like that, so that it will not lost in the conversation. We owe it to Ranjit. All right. And to Dr. Kumar, I believe that you have everything there is on the table to run the DRSF actually. So maybe it will be interesting to have another check-in with India a couple of months from now and see how it moves. Just a suggestion, Maria. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair. Over to you, Mr. Sunya.
So do we have any other matters to discuss before we have the closing session now?
Mr. Chair, maybe I could also ask a question.
Sure.
Just one additional one, while we still have 2 minutes before the 90 minutes is over. Perhaps Rike or Maria could share, if you have the information, of what are the major things that happen in front of us. You mentioned about this April event. Is there anything else that might of interest to the working group?
Yeah, thanks, Puji. I think that's a good way of spending a few additional minutes we have today. So let me kick it off, and then maybe Maria can add with some details. As we've informed this technical working group before, there has been a lot of attention globally to the work on disaster-related statistics that's really been spearheaded in the Asia-Pacific region. And what happened was that the global Commission of Statisticians, the United Nations Statistical Commission, looked at the work that we have all been doing and said, oops, disaster is a global priority. We do not currently have agreed standards on how to produce statistics on this topic. So let's establish a global group of experts who can work on this. So eventually, what has been done in Asia Pacific, what has been done in other countries around the world, can all be put together in terms of experiences. And what we do aim to get is a standard for how we should all produce disaster-related statistics. And as with all statistical standards, can I ask people to just mute their microphones, please?
Ranjit,
Yes.
could you mute your phone, please? Go ahead.
Okay, good. I'm still seeing the audio bubbles pop up here, but let's hope it's so. As with all statistical standards, this is not like the police saying everyone needs to produce exactly the same thing, but it is a guidance that strongly recommends that national statistics on this topic is produced in a way so that it can be presented in accordance with global standard. And why is that important? Well, it means that we can all compare each other's figures. And with phenomena such as natural disasters, we all know how important that is because they do not respect national borders. So that is the aim of this new global group. We have established the group. Many of the people on the call today have also put in expression of interest in joining the group. I'm very happy to see that we have countries from all regions of the world on this group. The group has still to meet, but myself in the statistics division of ESCAP, together with Maria, whom you've also heard today, are working with the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction Agency, UNDRR, to make sure that this group has a meeting very, very shortly. We are aiming for next month for that. That's going to be a little organizational meeting primarily to get priorities straight. But the first major gathering for this new global group is this expert forum in April that I mentioned. It is co-organized with an existing group in Europe. It is a task force on measuring extreme events and hazards, and some of you are also active in that group. So we are doing what we can to pull experiences and expertise from all over the world together. And the global work is primarily on standards. So it is different from the aim of this technical working group, where we from the outset has put a lot of emphasis on sharing national practices, national experiences for all of us to learn simply by being together in a forum. So in addition to that, you also heard from Sokol at the very beginning of this meeting that we are almost ready with the first rollout of an e-learning on disaster-related statistics. So those are the points I wanted to mention of upcoming activities. Maria, do you have any additions to what I've just mentioned?
Yes, sure, Rika. With regards to the e-learning, after SIAP will be rolling this out as an e-learning course in the first quarter of this year. I would like to inform everybody that the e-learning will also be translated into 2 languages, in Arabic and also in Russian. And besides what Ricky also mentioned with regards to the global group, I would like to inform the members of the TWG that for this year's 52nd meeting of the United Nations Statistical Commission, which will be held in the first week of March, we will be having a side event, particularly with regards to this global group. And this is event on the disaster-related statistics for the interagency and expert group. And the objective of this side event is to explore the issues that is surrounding disaster-related statistics that has been with the IAC expert group, which has been newly established by the core group of agency, namely the UNSD, the UNESCAP, UNECE, UNECLAC, UNECA, and UNDRR. And this core group is under the purview of the UN Statistical Commission. So this is going to be a 1 hour and a half side event, which will be consisting of mostly a panel discussion, which will be including country representatives from NSOs and national disaster management organizations from all the 5 regions of the world, and of course from other relevant institutions. So we will be sending out invitations and more information as we go along. So we will keep you in the loop for this development. So that's all, Rika.
Okay, thank you very much, Maria, and thank you for adding the side event. I totally forgot that. So I expect all members of this TWG to sign up and participate, because this is a very, very good chance for hearing also from other parts of the world what's happening and getting some more insights on from with a global perspective. And I have just shared the date and registration link in the meeting chat. So all of you, you can have a look there. And you should be able also through what I just sent to find more information. Yeah, thanks, Maria. And back to you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Nem. So I think we are done with the next steps. So I think now the focus now is to just to update on the next meeting, which is on Wednesday, 24th of February. Is that correct? Yes. So that is our next meeting. So again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for a very fruitful discussion that we have had today. As discussed by we must thank the presenters for a very detailed presentation that was done today. Thank you very much, and we thank participants for taking the time to be with us. For us, in small island developing states in the Pacific, although the focus is to report on the Sendai framework and also on the sustainable development goals, but the priority for us is to improve on our disaster management practices, and we can only do that because if we hear from much more developed countries in how they manage their disaster management practices. So once again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So we look forward to our next meeting on the 24th of February.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
We should get
Thank
Vivian to
you.
present
Thank
next
you.
time.
Take care.
Sorry.
See you, everyone.
Please stay
Next
Sorry.
time
safe,
you should
everyone.
present, Vivian.
Yes, stay
Uh,
safe.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
yes. Yes. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, kita lanjut.
Ingat kayo doon